There are a lot of things that can be said about Silent Hill F, and honestly, most of them are going to be controversial. Silent Hill is one of the most iconic horror franchises in gaming, and also one of the most criticized. Every new entry carries decades of expectations, comparisons, and baggage. Silent Hill F might be the most diverse one yet. Coming fresh off my full playthrough, I felt like I had to talk about this game because depending on how you look at it, Silent Hill F is either a solid psychological horror game or one of the least Silent Hill feeling Silent Hill games ever made. Before I talk about F, though, I'd like to discuss the short message in Silent Hill 2 very quickly and kind of their impact on where we're going with the series. Now let me start with Silent Hill the short message and their original announcement of Silent Hill 2 Remake, Silent Hill the short message, and then eventually Silent Hill F. Well, this was immediately available after that presentation, and I was really excited to jump into this. Man, it's been forever since I played Silent Hill, so I was wondering exactly what creativity could go into this game that I haven't already experienced. I gotta be honest with you, I got about an hour or so into this, and I know this isn't a very long game, but I didn't get it, and a lot of these real-time cutscenes were very confusing to me. I think the creativity was there, but the execution was sort of flawed. So I was like, okay, not a big deal. Silent Hill 2 Remake's about to come out. I'm going to jump into that and probably have a lot more fun. I finally got to play the Silent Hill 2 Remake, which is a game that's iconic on its own right. Sort of like Resident Evil 2, where it's very difficult to mess that formula up and people hate the game. The remake, of course, I thought was pretty fantastic. Blubber Team's game engine that they created or whatever to run this game was pretty impressive. Visually, I was kind of unimpressed with some of the physics and damage models and things on some of the enemies, but overall, this game told the story. It executed it very well. So, out of the 3 projects that they had planned, they're 1 for 2 on a high level of execution. So coming off those 2 games, where does F take us? Well, F centers around Hanukkah, a young woman struggling with fear of growing up caught between her childhood identity and the expectations placed on her as an adult in 1960s Japan. Relationships drive almost everything in the story, so she's the main character. She's emotionally stuck between who she was and who she's expected to be. Her best friend is a guy named Shu, and she also has a jealous friend, Rinko, who is in love with Shu, from my understanding. Sakuko is Hanukkah's former best friend, and it seems like during the story you figure out she's been proposed to and an engagement arranged. And Sakuko basically has a bit of resentment over this. Junko is Hanukkah's older sister. She's sort of aggressive and kind of frightening, but her character is essentially there to force, drive Hanukkah to grow up, essentially. And there's also this guy, Foxmask. He's basically this mysterious figure in the other world who wants to marry Hanukkah and represents the pressures of forced adulthood. The themes here are actually strong: identity, social pressure, gender roles, the fear of the future. I mean, on paper, this is a pretty compelling setup. The problem is, it just takes way too long for any of it to become engaging. So gameplay-wise, Silent Hill F makes some big changes. Weapons break quickly, so you're constantly scavenging and managing resources. Inventory is limited, unlike the original trilogy. You now have to balance health, sanity, and stamina, all of which can be used as offerings at save points. Combat still feels clunky, and honestly, I'm fine with that. Hanukkah's like a teenage girl. She's 16 or so. Not a trained fighter. Just like James, Harry, and Heather before, she's a non-combatant. So the awkwardness of combat mostly works in this context. Now, sort of like Silent Hill 2, there's a perfect dodge system, which feels completely out of place. On top of that, there's a charm-based stat system that lets you boost abilities. Something like that feels basically ripped out of every other third-person action game or any Souls game. Doesn't ruin the game, but it's definitely out of place. I didn't really understand its addition to a game that's based off of taking damage, finding weapons, using your wits against the evils and not just having to equip charms to better stat pad yourself for boss fights or enemy encounters. The pacing with this game is really all over the place. The opening hours are rough, and when I say rough, I mean like the first 3 hours are an absolute slog. Enemies are mostly avoidable, and because the weapons break so fast, the game almost forces you to run instead of engage. Now, the town looks big, but exploration is basically an illusion. Fog, blocked routes, a strict point A to B progression turn large areas into glorified walking simulators. Outside of the cornfield boss puzzle at the very beginning, most of the early game could have just been condensed into a single cutscene, similar to how Silent Hill 1 and 2 established their characters quickly and efficiently. So this is where things really start to fall apart. In classic Silent Hill, the other world invades reality. You have rust, decay, screaming machinery, and environments transforming in real time. That's gone! In Silent Hill F, the other world is completely separate dream, sort of like location, accessed only when the main character Hanukkah is unconscious. So instead of all that industrial decay, you get like this flower-like flesh growth and temple-style environments. Now, it's mysterious, okay, but like it's not scary. There's no dread, no grime, no oppressive sound design, no feeling that the world itself is rotting around you. The Fox Mask guide you through these sections, which is mostly they just boil down to like walking, there's light puzzles and exploration. It feels more like a dark fantasy dreamscape than a psychological horror game. So, most of the game then just follows this loop where you run to a location, you pass out, you solve puzzles in the other world, you wake up, and repeat. By the second half, combat essentially just becomes mandatory, and it's honestly unbearable. Boss fights feel less like terrifying confrontations and more like I'm playing like a Bloodborne game with worse controls. Just doesn't feel like a Silent Hill game. There are some highlights here. The cornfield puzzle boss is creative, really just overstays its welcome. Hanukkah's house towards the end of the game briefly kind of captures a sense of that unknown area in the first couple of games, but still just lacks that oppressive atmosphere. And the elementary school, this is where the game finally feels like Silent Hill. This section's focused, it's contained, there's exploration, you're figuring things out naturally, uncovering story elements through the environment instead of just endless cutscenes. It's engaging and it's memorable. For the first time, and basically the only time throughout the game, I actually felt like I was playing a Silent Hill game. And surprise, the section made me care about the main character Hanukkah more than hours of dialogue and cutscene ever did. So I'm no Silent Hill expert. I mean, I basically played the first 3 games and that's it. I haven't explored the rest of the series, mainly because it's too expensive to. These games are very, very difficult and hard to find, but I digress. So what's the point of this? Well, I'm reviewing this game in 2 different ways. So first, as a standalone horror game, if this was called like Fatal Frame F or Allan Wake F or Until Dawn F, I'd probably give this game like a 5 or a 6. Yeah, there's really good atmosphere. The themes are interesting. It tells a really dark story about identity and societal pressure, but it's padded. It's slow, and it's just not something I'd care to replay. So out of the entirety of the game, I have to admit, this version of Hanukkah, this boss version of her from like the other world that fully submits to becoming this obedient wife, Shirimuku, or whatever it's referred to as, is actually pretty terrifying when it's on screen. His presence is very unsettling, and they did a really good job with this entity. So as a Silent Hill game, I gotta drop it down to like a 3 out of 10. This has nothing to do with the town of Silent Hill. The town itself is the core concept, Silent Hill. It's just gone. It feels like Konami just slapped a beloved name on a decent horror game to sell more copies. And that hurts more than anything else, because Silent Hill F could have had its own unique series. Instead, it'll always just be remembered as a game that didn't quite belong. Well, that's it. That's my review of Silent Hill F. It's a good horror game and a slightly not great Silent Hill game. Unfortunately, the game takes a few playthroughs to fully get the story and everything. I just don't have it in me to do that, honestly. But I guess when Konami remakes Silent Hill F in a couple of years, we'll be able to see if maybe they flesh out some of the gameplay problems and story and pacing and just some other elements of the game. It's your boy User, and I'm out.